scholarship. And we read in the newspapers and we see online and on the news what's happening in America and what's happening around the world. And what we wanted to do to finish today off was really bring an understanding of what is happening from people who are living it, living the autographic life, living the arts-based way of communicating, breathing stories. And we have probably lots of questions and things we'd like to ask you. So please leave time for that if you can keep to time. I'm not going to be a strict timekeeper, but I've asked you. And so I'll leave that with you, but I will give you a 1 minute warning. But we're really keen to hear from you. And I just really value that you've all responded to the call to come and be the last speakers of this conference. So we're going in alphabetical order. And so Bryant Keith Alexander, who is the Dean at Loyola Marymount University, to kick us off, please, Bryant. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a shortened version of a ever-growing piece that I was really inspired to engage relative to the call. I'm currently calling it Writing from the Field, a Poetic Autoethnography in Space. This is ICA correspondent Bryant Keith Alexander. I'm writing from the field in Los Angeles, California, United States of America. I'm writing from the field, an open land, but not a free land, one with planted seeds of freedom that are currently struggling to realize their full yield, not bounded by just hedges and fences that partition access, but a field bordered, armed, and protected from the free flow of possibility for brown bodies that are othered, restricting their mobility and their ability to roam and breathe. I'm writing from the field, a correspondent located in a space of interest, of action, of turmoil that currently belies its oversold positionality of democracy in world politics. I'm writing from the field of autoethnography as a process of critical perspective taking on position, positionality, and possibility, always striving towards a liberatory potentiality between personal experience, cultural phenomena, and futurity. I'm writing from a battlefield, trying to find a breathing space while dancing the treacherous dance of finding cover, while standing on the front line for liberty. Not too long ago, on the same streets, marching with chants of Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ plus Lives Matter and Women's Rights Matter, now with chants of Brown Lives Matter, knowing that all lives matter as we all seek spaces to breathe. I'm writing from the field in Los Angeles, California, USA, during the pervasive Donald J. Trump instigated immigration raids that are sweeping this city of angels, an emblematic foreshadowing of what could begin to happen in other parts of the US, as the current president has ordered legislations on border crossings and strategic attacks on presumed to be illegals in these United States of America. America, the home of the free and the home of the brave, we struggle to say. America, home of the Statue of Liberty with its emblematic message, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Well, Lady Liberty in New York Harbor now weeps with the disregard and disgrace to her welcome. I'm writing from the field in Los Angeles, California, in the United States of America, where suspected undocumented individuals, brown bodies, are being torn from spaces of their habit, habitus, and habitude. The repetition of location is important here. I'm writing from this field where multi-generational Hispanic Latino family units are being separated, detained, and deported to their presumed point of origin without the due process by charged armed military agents of the government in these United States of America. I'm writing from the field where masked ICE agents, that's Immigration and Customs Enforcement, are jumping out of trucks to forcefully detain and entrap brown bodies with no cease in sight. The borders have broadened, not just the demarcation of geographic territorialism, but the always and already geopolitical boundaries of belonging and desirability linked with citizenship, color, and country of origin. They are attacking and corralling farm workers at work in the fields, and they are plucking up brown bodies in the inner and surrounding cities of Los Angeles like UFO abductions. The act of breathing is far from assured for any of us. Thus, the phrase, I can't breathe, becomes indicative of not just the outcry of forced, inhibited physical capacity, but a social justice movement, an activist affect to which we must all be responsive. This is happening in the inner city because the borders of human care and consideration have been diminished as border policing has expanded, and many immigrants are living in lockdown, trading freedom for safety. My father used to say to me, Keith, my baby, they will get you anywhere, one way or the other, if that is what they want to do. They, being agents of disregard operating on racist territorial MAGA imperatives to make America great again, for whom? I'm writing from the field, where there are mass protests in Los Angeles and around the country, with protesters chasing federal agents and being arrested. Surely these are the state of our current affairs under the second term of this president. He all but predicted and promised this during his campaign for the election. And here we are. And who in the hell are we now, anyway? And yet I must admit that I am also writing from the field of my still comfortable university campus and my adjacent manicured neighborhood, often maintained by the same brown bodies that are being plucked up and deported, those spaces of my own habitus, and habitude set apart from the obvious places of traffic and trafficking of human despair in other parts of Los Angeles County. This is my guilt. This is my bad. So the dailiness of this horrific human travesty is close enough to pass and protest, but far enough for me to retreat to the comfort and safety, to write this response, to breathe a not so purified air of this version of Americanism in action. And while being Black in America is still a question of caution, this Black body in question could feel cautiously safe from this current set of attacks, but not really. It is all too close. It is all too historically real for Black bodies in this country and for this Black queer body in question that grew up in the American South. Is anyone oblivious to the human struggle for social justice ever really safe from the shared struggle? I'm writing from the field of autoethnography grounded within the critical intentionalities of qualitative research, writing from the field of qualitative inquiry as a form of democratic practice to show how qualitative inquiry can be used to directly engage pressing social issues at the level of local, state, national, and global communities. I'm writing from this field of ICAE 2025, knowing our joint investment in autoethnography as an invitation, mandate, and critical opportunity to story, perform, challenge, theorize, resist, or reimagine spaces, relationships, and new ways of being in for the human and more than human world, which is our environment, which is our planet. Because the butterfly effect, the butterfly effect of what is happening here always and already impacts you there. Tariffs on products and services, restrictions on roaming across international borders, potential bombs of war bursting in air, the air that we all breathe that flows across all borders. COVID should have taught us a lesson, y'all. I'm writing from this field to spread the word from a personal perspective of what this moment in the US and specifically in the Los Angeles area means for me here, for you there, and everywhere. For we all live on a planet and in communities consistently threatened by destruction, threatened by war, threatened by indifference, and the arrogance of one to impose a private will upon a fellow creature. How do we continue to write through locational politics to make our scholarship matter relative to who we are and where we are in relation to others? Teaching, learning, and helping others to breathe in our diverse life circumstances. How do we use the critical craft of autoethnography to challenge all of us to speak and teach and write with eloquence, which is our communal charge as we are working for justice? Or, as my brother Chris Poulos writes, how do we continue to engage the vibrating force of storycraft in service of our life enhancing, knowledge constructing, world building praxis of autoethnography? For me, in a biblical sense, how do we become good neighbors, good Samaritans to each other through our work? These are not just questions. This should become the continued charge in the work of autoethnography to which we must
Bryant, can you
all
finish?
attend and collectively contribute, imagining a time when there were no borders of human disregard, and a realization that we are all standing in the field, waiting, waiting, wandering, and wondering what is next. For the International Conference of Autoethnography 2025, this is Brian Keith Alexander reporting from the field that is Los Angeles, California, United States of America.
Wow, thank you, Bryant. That was very powerful. We're switching. I'm going to go second, but Art is going to help me. And I think it works better in this order. My presentation is called, What Did He Do Today? What did he do today? I ask Art, who always tunes into the news on his drive home. Art knows what I'm asking.
Oh, just more of the usual. Arresting immigrants with no due process, threatening to cut Medicaid for poor people, even when he says he's not, applauding his henchmen who cuff and arrest Medicare protesters in wheelchairs, changed his mind on tariffs again today and boasted of his deals. Claims he obliterated the Iran nuclear sites when most reports suggest otherwise. Lies, lies, lies. That's all he does. He lies about everything.
Sounds like just another day in the great country of the USA. He's exhausting. What did you talk about in therapy today?
What do you think? How to cope with the political situation and how it hangs over our heads and through our bodies all the time.
That really sounds cheery. Did you learn anything?
I learned that it is good to have someone to talk with about these things, in addition to you, of course, darling.
I'm glad you have Beth because it gives me a break from the political talk.
Well, that's not all she and I discuss.
I know. Anyway, what can we do?
Nothing, really. He's going to do what he's going to do, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Okay, it's time for a walk down the mountain, I say, as Molly and Dolly dance in circles around us. What's great about a walk, in addition to movement, is that most of the time we don't think or talk about politics. Instead, we admire the beauty of nature and enjoy our two rat terriers who are caught up in the here and now. Throw the ball, I say. I'll let them off their leashes. The dogs run as fast as they can down the mountain barking. They then play keep away with one holding the miniature tennis ball in her mouth. We throw another ball for the second dog, and to keep the game in motion, I scamper for the ball before Dolly can get it. We need this, some breathing space.
Oh, we do. Dolly, come.
Molly, come, I say, and the dogs run back and forth between us to get their treats. In return, they plant kisses on our faces when we bend down. Back at our cabin, we both check our phones to see what he did in the past few hours. Do you believe? It starts, and the conversation swells again until I place Sauvignon Blanc and goat cheese on the outside deck, a sign that political talk is over for now. We sit and admire the colorful sunset, discuss our day, and snap a few photos to send to friends on Facebook. At dark, we go inside and fix dinner. During our meal, Art turns on YouTube and cycles through news stories, all of which focus on what he did today. I tune in when something grabs my attention while I read articles on my phone. After dinner, we turn to our favorite series, The Resident.
We viewed 90 of the 106 episodes. We should be watching comedy and laughing, not engaging in a hospital drama where people are traumatized, sick, and dying. Don't we have enough of that in our real lives?
Well, it's better than watching Trump. Anyway, the actors have become my friends. And there's much about friendship and romance in the show, as well as medical ethics and politics, dignity and death, all topics I'm interested in. Anyway, it takes my mind off the political situation and, ironically, our own health concerns. We need that. Art nods, but I'm not sure he's convinced. That's a brief look into a day in the life of Art and Carolyn during the Trump regime. We enter, we leave, we break away, we come back. We are disgusted, fearful. We are joyful and loving, grief-stricken and traumatized. We feel suffocated. And then into the vortex we breathe. We wonder how much worse it can get, but we know the answer. There are no limits to Trump's evil and cruelty. We talk about the 1930s and what led up to the Holocaust. Now we understand how it was that people stayed and refused to believe. But it can't happen here, we assure each other. Then quiet as we contemplate that it can happen here and may already be in process. We shake our heads, take deep breaths, and move to our everyday concerns. The painter coming tomorrow, a friend we should call. And we do what we can. We go to rallies where we hold signs, wave to those who honk their horns. We scream resist and no kings, and ignore those who yell in favor of Trump. It is exhilarating. We seek out a community of like-minded folks in our neighborhood and on Facebook. We move between being realistic and in denial, being practical and philosophical, between acceptance and resistance, confusion and clarity, and hopelessness and optimism. I throw my energy into planning an 80th birthday party for Art, attended by former students. I love anticipating the surprises we plan for him. We need to celebrate, I say, not just you, but our community, the good things in our lives. I seek comfort and companionship in others' words. I say to my friend Mary Poole, it's good to be old now, to not have to anticipate and live through what is to come. Maybe, she muses, but who wants to die and leave the world in this state for our children and grandchildren? She quotes the Buddhist teacher Joanna Macy. Quote, this is a dark time filled with suffering and uncertainty. Like living cells in a larger body, it is natural that we feel the trauma of our world. So don't be afraid of the anguish you feel, or the anger or fear, because these responses arise from the depth of your caring and the truth of your interconnectedness with all beings. Comforted by these words, I vow not to shut down, but instead to be present and in it, to feel fully and the joy and the anguish. I vow to view hope as active, not passive, to continue doing what we are doing, no matter the outcome, to protest, to care, to join with others and appreciate the world as a beautiful and tortured place. Yet the pain of loss and fear overwhelm me sometimes, and I retreat. Back and forth, I stumble, trying to figure out how to love my country while I am embarrassed by it. How did we let this happen? And where do we go from here?
This is a small part of what will be a longer paper to be given in Great Britain later this summer. It's dedicated to my brother, the artist Mel Bochner, who passed away in March. It's titled Kick Against the Pricks. We are the ones we've been waiting for. 9 days before the 2024 election, Trump holds a surreal rally in Madison Square Garden, keynoted by comedian Toady Hinchcliffe, who makes racist jokes targeting various minorities. Another speaker compares Vice President Kamala Harris to a prostitute and the Antichrist, using racist tropes related to her ethnicity. The remarks are widely condemned. I gain confidence Trump will be defeated. On election day, Carolyn and I work at a local precinct. The small turnout shocks me. Where are the voters? The streets and parking lots are empty. Still anticipating a Harris victory, we invite like-minded friends over to watch the election results. By 8 o'clock, the signs are ominous. Exit polls favor Trump, and he leads everywhere that matters. I feel nauseous, no appetite. My head aches. Our friends leave early. I retire, pulling the blankets over my head, and cry. It's deja vu all over again. The morning after offers little comfort. Trump has normalized unlawfulness and corruption. The American electorate looked at his resume and shrugged their shoulders. Convicted felon? Doesn't matter. Civilly liable of sex abuse and defamation? Does not matter. Falsifies business records illegally? Doesn't matter. 6 bankrupt businesses? Don't matter. Urged and plotted a coup to overturn the 2020 election? Doesn't matter. Enjoys humiliating other people, prioritizes revenge, wealth, and loyalty. Calls climate policy a hoax. Science and income inequality, he evades, he ignores, he defames. 77 million Americans voted for Trump. Don't you think that ought to give us pause to question ourselves? An election usually is won or lost on narrative grounds. Best story wins. Americans chose the story Trump was telling, a story of darkness, chaos, division, and exclusion, over the one Harris was telling. Barack Obama once referred to the period in which we are governing as the fierce urgency of now. He had not anticipated the curse that is Trump. For we Americans who believe it is more patriotic to tell the public the truth on life and death matters, and it is unpatriotic to mislead the public in order to control it and suppress dissent, Donald Trump poses the greatest threat of our lifetime. It is imperative that we better understand the source of his popularity and his hold on our fellow Americans. David Shields put his finger on the nature of the problem. Those who hate Trump approach the problem of Trump through negation. He's B, he's A, we're B. Trump embodies everything bad. We are the forces of righteousness. But Trump, you see, Trump can't simply be negated. He must be disrupted, destabilized, weakened, and subverted. It hasn't worked to construe Trump as wholly other. Trump knows how to get under our skin. There, under our skin, Trump functions as a virus circulating through our consciousness. The germ is abject, but we can't simply push it away by dwelling on our own goodness and Trump's evil. There's something more here, something many of us have participated in, a shadow, a darkness, something cultural, something to do with postmodernism and the once well-meaning deconstruction of objectivity and truth. Remember Rashomon, where each of the four narratives are filmed in the same third-person objective style? We can see what happens, but we gradually learn not necessarily to believe what we saw with our own eyes. Recall Trump telling his followers, "Don't believe what you see, believe what I tell you." The historian Timothy Snyder says, if you want to rip the heart out of a democracy, you go after facts. If we don't have facts, then we can't trust each other. If we don't trust each other, then we don't have laws. And if we don't have laws, we don't have a democracy. In 2016, the Oxford International Dictionaries named the word post-truth their International Word of the Year. International Word of the Year, defining it as circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotions and personal belief. The following year, Trump won the presidency and his administration circulated the term alternative facts. Trump has a thorough understanding of the post-truth world engulfing world politics. He lies about everything and simultaneously claims it is journalists and the media who are faking the news. He works untiringly to confuse, distort, and muddy every issue, promoting uncertainty, ambiguity, and indecision. He is now closer than ever to producing the Republican Party's wet dream, an ignorant populace having no confidence that truth can be discovered, who ask, what is truth anyway? Who needs it? If that impulse spreads, it's ball game over. Time is running out. We can no longer waste time raging over every rotten thing he says or on demonizing his supporters. We need to remind ourselves of Obama's keen insight. We are the ones we have been waiting for. The rest is futile. It's not as if Trump lacks transparency. We know who we're dealing with, but we don't quite know how to deal with him. How do you deal with a person whose primary impulse in every aspect of his life is to deny, deceive, denigrate, deflect, and double down every time he is challenged? Trump is a formidable opponent. He has brought the Republican Party to heel, and he is now working on the rest of the population. He is doing really terrible things that are hurting people around the world. How can he do these things and look himself in the mirror? A friend of mine emails. Have you looked at his face? I reply, at his makeup, his fake hair, the whole performative posture. Imagine, Martha Stroud asks, imagine if you can not having a conscience, none at all. No feelings of guilt or remorse, no matter what you do. No limiting sense of concern for the well-being of strangers, friends, or even family members. Imagine no struggles with shame, no matter what kind of selfish, lazy, harmful, or immoral action you have taken. You can do anything at all and still your strange advantage over the majority of people who are kept in line by their consciences will most likely remain undiscovered. How then will you live your life? What will you do with your huge and secret advantage? For Trump, it is not scary, it is nirvana. To summarize, narrative matters. Trump and Trumpism can only be defeated by a better story for America. Trumpism, in its emphasis on bullying, dividing, humiliating, winning, condemning, avenging, lying, eschewing sacrifice and empathy, and nailing at the feet of the great one, is not a story that I believe most Americans find appealing. But can we find a better story? We are not going back. Didn't work. Trump sucks. Doesn't work. Identity politics and the culture wars don't seem to work. I recall myself as a 15-year-old sitting in my living room alone, watching John F. Kennedy's inaugural address in 1961 when he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." What most people don't remember is the close of the speech, when he said, "In your hands, my fellow citizens, more than mine, will rest the final success or failure of our course." Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm gonna bring us home. I'm gonna start by invoking the words of J.R.R. Tolkien. Rumor grew of a shadow, whispers of a nameless fear. In my youth, I was gripped by literature and films that featured the rise of a dystopian world, a world where power and greed and violence somehow got out of hand, where dark forces shoved humans into that terrifying and oppressive place in which tyranny holds us all in suspension, in nameless fear. In all these great stories, there were those who held out hope, who, through courageous actions against all odds, triumphed over evil. In my reading and watching, I was, like these heroes and rebels, searching for a new hope. We all searching to break the chains that bound us. We were searching for possibility. Perhaps we were searching for renewal, for freedom, for a world where love and laughter and compassion overcame evil. In all these stories, even the darkest ones, there was always a ray of hope, no matter how thin. It never did occur to us books and films were prophecies of how bad our world would actually get. They were fiction intended as cautionary tales against falling into the grip of tyranny. We did not believe that we would ever really be entering some weird mashup of 1984, Brave New World, 2001, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Lord of the Flies. I'm honestly sure that me and my friends never actually descend so low as we have now. Maybe we were naive, or maybe our only truly unlimited renewable resource in our once United States is denial. Something about what we are experiencing now surely seems different than anything we thought possible. It's way too apocalyptic, too close to apocalyptic for my blood. 100 years ago, Antonio Gramsci wrote, "The old world is dying, the new world struggles to be born. Now is the time of monsters." Are we still living in the time of monsters? On this side of the pond, it sure seems so. You may have heard, we're going through this whole rebrand process in America. We're switching it up. We were once the land of the free and the home of the brave. We're moving into our next phase. Land of, oh fuck, what are we? Land of the unlawfully renditions, home of the terrified? Maybe we've just lost it completely. Our collective mental health may be in question, so it seems that there is perhaps no more fitting symbol for our current situation than a cackling, shouting, chainsaw waving, Nazi saluting tech billionaire helping a narcissistic, badly dressed, orange tinted, raving lunatic, likely demented, surely sociopathic billionaire, flanked by a bevy of other sociopathic tech and Wall Street billionaires, destroy our system and insert some kind of kleptocratic, oligarchic, tyrannical, apocalyptic, idiocratic, white supremacist hellscape in its place. Unbelievably, even after the relentless, swirling, churning hell of his first term, which ended ignobly in his badly executed attempt to mount a coup, we Americans jumped into that swirling chaos of incompetence and greed again. We have somehow managed to reinstate that reality show clown, that international embarrassment, our most abominable citizen, felon 47 to a second term. And he is leaning hard into full-blown fascist dictatorship. He and his cronies promised shock and awe. They declared they would flood the zone, and they have delivered. The list of chaotic shockwaves they perpetrated is far too long to cover here. I'm just going to offer a small sample. They interfere directly with our universities, including forcing changes in our curricula, weaponize the Department of Justice against political enemies, attack law firms and journalists who oppose the administration, canceled Ebola prevention. What could possibly go wrong? Push legislation that would take away health care and social safety net benefits from millions of our citizens, fired hundreds of thousands of civil servants without any analysis of or regard for the importance of these positions to the everyday functioning of our nation, managed to appoint the least qualified, most incompetent cabinet in U.S., including a health secretary who is a vaccine denier with an apparent brainworm whose thin grasp of medical knowledge has been gleaned most conspiracy theory websites, suspended habeas corpus and illegally renditioned immigrants to third country prisons, illegally ordered troops to quell legal and peaceful protests in Bryant's town, killed environmental protections, openly accepted bribes, gutted the National Weather Service. Again, what could possibly go wrong? Built a cage in a swamp not far from Carolyn and Art, affectionately called Alligator Alcatraz, to hold immigrants in detention, broken the vaccine system, gutted health care for the poor. The list goes on and on. In short, we may be in trouble. People are afraid, and yet I keep thinking that we must not succumb to fear. Tyranny thrives in darkness and fear. This climate of fear has changed our lives. In moments like this, I find myself thinking, well, maybe the anxiety that defines our time in history is contagious, like the plague, like COVID-19. But I also find myself wondering if courage, defined as strength of mind and spirit, the heart to face danger, fear, or difficulty, could also be contagious. Could it be that we all can and possibly will find an act out of that place of strength that seems so hell-bent on eluding us? Can we stand strong together even as we are buffeted about by the winds of this storm? Can we find possibility in this darkness and fear? Can we craft a beautiful future from this precipice on which we find ourselves? Can we turn away from the swirling chaos and build a bright, beautiful new world? Can we banish the monsters? Can we defeat the creeping shadow, overcome the nameless fear? I, for one, can't let go of courage, of heart. Not yet. I keep thinking maybe together we can, once again, learn to say yes to life. Maybe together we can stop tyranny in its tracks. Maybe we can win. May the force be with us.
Wow, thank you. We did ask for it. And thank you all of those for being so candid and open about what's happening. And I just want to open the floor. I know some of you have come from America. One of our keynotes did. Jarell and Dominique and some others of you. So please just, if you have a comment, a thought, a reflection, or something you would like to say either online or in the room, and you'd like to respond to these pieces, thank you so much. But let me open the floor.
We recently, thank you all. I'm sat here. Yeah, it's just shit, isn't it? It's just, he's such a twat. I'm going to use more words. One of the we had a class workshop. We had somebody who runs a clowning company come and talk about different types of clowns, and she was making political points, and she talked the buffoon and the buffoonery, and of course we have Boris here being the buffoon, and you've got Trump, but this trickster way that he has of playing the sideline, and like you, Carolyn I go, now what's he fucking done today? And the other night I got back to my room and I put on, and he's standing there with, I think, a sports team in the States, and they're all celebrating, and somebody went to lead him off, but he stayed and he bounced with the team with their great big, and I thought, yeah, he's like devilishly clever, and yeah, that's the Machiavellian part of him that knows exactly what he's doing, and that is what's so scary.
Thanks, Sally. Chris, can I just say, you mentioned some of the things like Star Wars and the Hobbit and things like that. What can we learn from literature that might help us and give us hope? What's happening, guys? Anyone ideas from those stories that maybe we can do? What magic might we bring to our aid?
I don't know. Elise might be able to speak to this better, but I think a small band of rebels may be our only hope. Somebody that, like, willing to stand. And I think Art sort of mentioned this too. When he was talking, what popped into my head was my friend Bud Goodall. One of his last books he wrote about what he wrote called Counter Narrative, in which he was arguing that we needed to come up with a better story than. And I honestly, I don't think Trumpism has a coherent narrative, or like this trickster prestidigitation acting, distraction, all the things of all that question of what is today kind of thing is mostly distractions from the worst things he's doing. So there's a lot of distraction going on right now about the pedophile list from Jeffrey Epstein being buried by the Trump administration. The guess is there that he's at the top, that Trump is at the top of that list. So there's a lot of movement to try to distract people from that, because his own people are even rebelling against that one, because that was one of the things he ran on, was they were going to reveal that list. The cultists all thought that they were going to reveal a bunch of Democratic pedophiles, but it turns out there's probably a lot of prominent Republicans on that list. That's why it's gone. So maybe a small band of rebels with courage.
Art, you had your hand up, yeah?
I appreciate what Chris is saying, and when it comes to narrative, it seems to me that it's not just about the story itself, it's about the delivery and performance of the story. And the Republican Party is eons ahead of the Democratic Party and independents in that realm. I was shocked to hear a few days after the election that Trump had used NFL football as a major source for millions of Musk's ads about transgender Americans, about minorities, about the threats in the cities. And that message was delivered, and I think resoundingly effective. And I think this is a time for us, for narrators, for performers, to somehow get in there and influence. I think the rallies are fantastic, and I'm really enthused by them, and I think they're going to continue and build. But we have to reach the people. I truly believe that Trump's narrative and the narrative of the Republican Party is not what Americans as a whole want. So I think we have to put that into practice. Yeah.
Sasha, would you like to take over? And then Elise, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of distraction, I think, I mean, I don't live in the UK, but I follow what's happening in the UK. That's why I'm doing my PhD. And I think there's a lot of distraction there. And you mentioned stuff around sort of trans things as well. And there's been some law changes in the UK, which again I think are very much distractions. It's distracting people away from other things that are happening in the country, and so it becomes this big polemic about trans people are paedophiles. Essentially, it's the same message that Thatcher had in the 80s about gay men. So I think there's a lot of this distraction thing going on worldwide, and we need to be very, very wary of being distracted by these big headlines of these kind of moral debates or whatever.
Thanks, Shasha. Elise? Yeah, Elise.
Thanks so much to my colleagues here for putting into words what is really unspeakable. You know, Carolyn, you open with that. What did he do today? That really is the anthem of our days. And not just today, but in this last hour, there is a fear that I have turning on the news to find out, did we bomb someone today? Who got picked up and renditioned? That everydayness. Kind of a couple of things that I find myself facing is trying to fight against despair. And I really want to pick up, Bryant, your sense of action. What are we doing in the field? What helps me fight that daily despair is, number one, remembering that the community is so compromised right now, the most vulnerable. This is not their first rodeo. People of color, LGBTQ people, this is not their first. You know, that arc of the moral universe, it's still arcing. And I am, in a sense, late to the game of that resilience. And so taking courage, taking counsel from those who have walked this over and over and over again. For women, it's women who got us the reproductive rights in the first place, who are back on that line again. The grandmothers that I see, you know, so this cycle, we are not new to this. The other that's really remarkable to me is the rise of grassroots, small local action. And again, that comes out of so many social movements, right? What we are doing narratively, largely, but what we are doing when we walk out the front door. And there's a person who is afraid to come to work today because they could be picked up. Need those kinds of things. What I am finding in my community, Bryant in California, what's happening in California is kind of the front lines of it. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm about 2 hours from the southern border as a border state, as a red state, a Republican state, surrounded by predominantly Hispanic communities that are doing the labor of sustaining the lifestyle of those who don't have to recognize what's happening. So that kind of paradox. And what I'm finding is, number one, a fear. There is a, who are you? As you meet new people, as you enter new spaces, there's a figuring out. And again, this is not new to people who've been on the other side of that oppression line. Can I trust you? And the building up of cues to be able to say, oh, okay, you're one of us. I can. But there is a plethora of grassroots efforts among faculty. How do you talk to your students? What kind of counsel? If somebody walks into your classroom, what can you do? Very practical, boots on the ground strategies of resistance that are really circulating, that give me hope. In my community, a huge rise of non-government organizations, of nonprofits, of food banks, now that there are going to be so many cuts in food assistance, so many cuts for Medicare. I've just signed out to work a food bank, to drive people to and from their appointments, because if Medicaid is not going to take seniors. And I am finding, probably for the first time, that I am needing to do things. Get in my car, drive to the food bank, stock shelves. Because the strategies I have used up to this point no longer assuage the guilt, my bad, as Bryant was saying, as I live in my gated community. And it is that tearing I am finding I am needing to get my hands dirty in some very hands-on. here's a packet of food for you. Let me drive you to your doctor's appointment in a way that I have not ever done in my life up to this point. So it is shifting my activism and calling me to account in a way that I have not done before.
Thanks, Elise. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Elise. It gives me all kinds of ideas about what I should be doing right now and could be doing right now. That's important.
Yes, sorry, Darrell. I'm bringing the microphone. I'm leaping over Ken.
Hey, actually, that's probably a good segue. I'm thinking about the field as a shared space of labor. I'm thinking about Anna DeVere Smith notes from the field actually as a different type of call and a performative response to what is happening politically, a slightly previous moment before this one. And I guess I'm curious to hear from more of the panelists, maybe what is the particular type of field work you all are taking on. I think similar to what Elise is giving us. And I'm thinking about in my friend group, for example, as we are discussing this sort of constantly, one of my friends literally is concerned about our closing off, our shutting doors, our choosing not to engage. And he has made actively the choice. One thing he's doing that encourages me is to do Sunday dinners in a Black tradition of eating with community in real particular types of ways to make sure that we actually gather. And so I'm curious about what are the types of field work that people are taking up in this moment that might encourage us to think about more strategically the ways we don't turn away, that we can still encourage soldiers on the field, so to speak, to keep morale up, to keep fighting the next battle, because it is a long arc.
Allow me to maybe offer a brief response. But first, I'm going to say, hey, Darrell. Good to see both of you there. This is wonderful. I think that my response to your charge is very much in alignment with everything that my sister teacher friend Elise Pineau just laid out. I mean, I'm actively engaged in working with and through my church, right, to engage, working in food banks, working in delivering food to families that we know as a church community, right, are choosing to stay in order to avoid the potential of being plucked up by ICE. Right. We are engaged in opening, a sort of underground railroad, if you will, right, of engagements, of activities, of transport, of support, bringing people to. We have a whole short list of doctors who are providing a series of medical services, right, in a sort of return to home care, right, as opposed to having people go into a clinic or go into a hospital. And we're working on connecting the dots between people with need and people who are providing those kind of services. And some of whom, and as an academic dean, I'm also in the process of working with and consoling so many of our students. So many of our students who are immediately impacted because of family and friends, students who are afraid as to whether or not they can actually return to school, students who certainly can't cross borders to return, international students, and so forth. On campus, we have a unit called Community of Care. And that community of care is when any individual faculty or staff knows of a student's dilemma or a student's trauma across a wide range of experiences that young people have in the dailiness of their academic life. We have a mechanism of privately reporting that. And then there's a kind of triage team, if you will, that come together to provide them with the kind of support that they need. And we find that in this current moment, that is just expanding to a wide variety of other kind of needs. right? As the dean, I have the privilege of being able to dip into resources and funds in order to provide additional levels of support. And that support is far beyond just quote unquote scholarship dollars, right? It is trying to put money into people's pockets, right, in ways that will sustain them and their family and their inner circle of people who is not just family, but is their support structure that allows them to be fully alive, right? And so I love that you brought up this subject, and particularly, this notion of the field work, right? And certainly within my own presentation, I played off this notion of writing in the field. But the field is also a place of absolute labor where we have to give back something in meaningful kind of ways. Yeah? Does that make sense, Dominique?
Yes.
Just wave your hand like this, right? Okay, sister friend.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh. Yeah. Thank you. We're sort of running out of time now. I just wondered if Chris or Caroline had anything to say off the back of Bryant's response to Durrell.
So I would just say I've been Susan, who has joined us for this session, who joined us live last year. Yeah.
Lovely to see you.
We've been talking about getting this local training intervene with ICE when they're trying. We live in a refugee center city of Greensboro for a long time, has been a place where refugees have been housed by various agencies. And so we have a vibrant community of people that could be in danger. And then my university is a minority serving institution, sort of certified as that. So, like Bryant was saying, we have a lot of students who are afraid. They're afraid they're going to go home and their parents are going to be gone. We have a lot of Latinas students that live at home with their extended families and are afraid to go home sometimes, or afraid what they'll find when they get there. So we've been talking about, we haven't done it yet, but we've been talking about getting this training to be stand in between these what we see as illegal and unconstitutional deportations without habeas corpus. So that's a pretty bold kind of frontline kind of thing to do, but I think maybe we should.
Changing microphones here. Because the batteries, we've been talking so much, or maybe the person in the front of the room has been speaking so much, we're wearing our batteries out. Okay, I'm going to draw this session to a close. I wasn't expecting this to be an easy listen for us. And I struggle to believe this is really happening. And it takes me back to the Second World War in Europe and what was happening in Austria and Germany and France and Belgium and the Netherlands, and people hiding from the Gestapo and being deported. And the resistance that was going on at the same time, the underground, the movement to hold on to what was left. And there's only one way for us to do that, and that is to hold on and to move against those powers. Because it's the same for us here. It will come, you're right when you said it's coming over here, these type of things. So we have to be mindful and we have to be wary and not minimize and think, oh, it's not there. Democracy is a very fragile thing. Who knew? Yeah. Peace is a really fragile thing. And it's being tested all the time. So we need to really play our parts in that as autoethnographers and to write and think how we can do things in words, and in practice. And I want to say for all of you that have contributed to this session today that we admire the stands that you're taking and the ways that you're taking and what you've shared with us. And it's really good for us to hear those things. So thank you for reporting from our field, our correspondents. We'll check back with you. And in the meantime, sending love and hugs. Thank you so much.